Okay, so here's part two, and basically, essentially, we're just going to go up by half steps. But I'm taking a major scale, and I'm going to break it down into intervals: seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and then the octave. Pretty much the same format as part one, except we're not going to use the pedal register, the lip bend portion, basically, like I said, it's just a scale broken down into articulations and intervals. So here we are, back to part two, back to middle C, third space C. Now this is an exercise taken out of the Max Schlossberg book, and that should be a name that you're familiar with as a trumpet student and as a trumpet professional. If you're not, I highly recommend getting his exercise book, it's been around for generations and will continue to be around for generations. Heck, I could have an entire hour-long lesson on that particular book and how it's organized, or lack thereof, to be quite honest with you. But there's so many great components from that book, and that's what I base this next sequence of exercises on. Half step up from there is C sharp. I'm taking every single one of those notes and I'm imagining each one as a target, that I'm blowing my air right in the middle of each note, pretending like each note is a bullseye. You got to hit the bullseye of the target in order for it to be a good sound and in tune. Now, Max Schlossberg actually recommends, while doing these exercises, to have your corners of your embouchure set for the highest pitch of the phrase. So I'm not moving my corners for each individual note. They're staying set for the highest note, and I'm allowing the air to do all the work for me. The embouchure pretty much stays fairly similar from one note to the next. Again, the action is inside the mouth. The jaw, the tongue, the lips, everything kind of reacts to what we're doing with the air. More the tongue moves first, more than anything else. But the lips, those, the embouchure formation, that's secondary to everything else. A lot of people think, well, I got to move my embouchure first. Nothing can be further from the truth. The embouchure pretty much stays set for the highest pitch, no matter what you're doing, and you allow the air and the tongue level to basically do the work for you. And after each one of these exercises, I take the horn off the face and then reset. If there's a particular interval, just like in the first segment, we use the 3 I's. If there's a particular interval that is giving you problems, just isolate the interval. Obviously, on brass instruments, the wider the interval, the more challenging physically and sometimes mentally that can be for us. And if we don't know what that note sounds like in our ear, Arnold Jacobs reference, and if we don't know what it feels like on our face, everybody else reference, it might be a hard time for us. So we want to make sure that we can hear the pitch and feel the pitch. And then be confident and use your imagination, as Phil Smith would say, and imagine your favorite trumpet player playing that note at the same time that you are. He says, turn on your imagination. Now, some people might consider stopping at that point. That would be G above the staff. But I continue up by half step until about the C above that. Sometimes, depending upon what I have to do that day, whether I'm playing a lead gig or I'm doing a lot of high playing, I'll warm up, continuing past that mark of C. I'll go to C sharp, D, E flat, E, and maybe even F. Again, you chip a note, everybody chips. But you just gotta, understand why you chip the note. And that time, I definitely had my air not working for me, and I was probably moving my embouchure a little bit too much, so I stopped. Reset the embouchure, reset the air, and second time, obviously the problem went away. Again, the point of this exercise is to warm up. It's not to get tired. A lot of my young students will push themselves during the warm-up, and by the time they reach the end of this technically 10-minute period, and as here we're on 7.5 minutes right now because I'm talking, but they get done with the 10-minute period and they're exhausted physically. Most likely they're using too much mouthpiece pressure and not enough air movement doing the work for them. But you know what? You should know your limitations. You should know where your range pretty much ends. Where is your highest, most comfortable note? And from there, it's just like weightlifting. You'll add 5 pounds onto the dumbbell and do another repetition. The next week, maybe you're able to add 10 pounds to the barbell or whatever. Same thing is true with our playing. As brass players, our range is very much the same as the amount of weight that we put onto the barbell. And it takes time, it takes dedication, it takes consistency in order for that range to increase, just much like a bodybuilder trying to increase the amount of weight that they're able to bench press. So that completes part 2. At this point, I feel really very ready to go. I don't feel like I have to do a whole heck of a lot more than that. I know my individual warm-up has changed significantly over the years. I know a lot of players, the longer they play, the more they adapt different things. The key here is, especially with a wife and kids at home, you got to kill as many birds as you can with one stone in the amount of time that's been given to you. So that's definitely the challenge as you get older. So young lads that are in college right now, enjoy the individual time that you have, being able to practice 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours a day. God bless you. So enjoy it while it lasts, because let me tell you, from personal experience, it's definitely a challenge once you start adding more responsibility to your plate. I hope that was helpful to you, and thank you again for visiting MitchGableBrass.com.